I got to start by saying I am honored to be here. I mean, when I had the idea for this, which came about some time ago, but actually it was in September I committed to do it. I had no idea if anybody would want to hear this, but the idea that Al put forth, I mean, thank you, Al. That was great, great reflections. And to be honored to be following the sing band. I know their music. I'm just struggling with their name. I guess I'm not perfect, but I love your music, and I love the honor of being with you today. Before I begin, I want to check my watch because this is only my second sermon, and the first one I did, I was told I went over. I want to try to prevent that from happening today. Thanks. When I first put this together and rehearsed it last week, it only lasted 10 minutes. And I know it's expanded since then. So, but I also want to talk about the fact that in kind of a preamble for this, that as I told people that I was doing this, I got some input from some friends. One of them, you know, and he was here just a week ago. Brett Kuhn was talking about coming from the heart and getting your head out of the way and letting God speak through you. And he came up here and did that, just that. Somewhere toward the middle of the week, I was talking to a new friend I met dancing by the name of Sarah Ann. She's kind of an itinerant minister. She doesn't belong to any congregation, but she's on a spiritual path not unlike our own. And she's gone to several congregations and done sermons. And she echoed what Brett said. She just prays that she gets a topic. They assign her a topic. She gets a topic. She prays about it and then just speaks from the heart. Now, both those cases, they talk about trusting God to supply the words. And I just want to tell you that I trust God, but I don't trust coming from my heart to my mouth. So I brought notes. Another reflection from a friend this week was just yesterday. My friend Paulette said, enjoy your sermon tomorrow. I know you do well. I responded to that by saying, I need to rehearse this at least 4 more times, and then I think I'll be ready to enjoy it. So, fresh from those rehearsals, I'm kind of a little more from my heart, but I also pretty much memorized parts of what I've said. So, forgive me if I look down to my notes. The preparation for this, like I said, began that long ago, and it just keeps unfolding. In the last 24 hours, I had a couple things I came across that I wanted to add to this. But when I was done with my preparation, when I was getting ready to come here, it's kind of a sign of who I am. I decided I needed some music, and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to choose. I was tempted to go to my phone for Spotify and the multitude of playlists I've created there. Instead, I walked over to my CD player and looked down and saw Lady Gaga. I said, I bet there's something there I could enjoy. The first song was Just Dance. How perfect! I just let it keep playing, and then she got to a place. The last song I heard was called Boys, Boys, Boys. Sometimes I think that I'm more of a boy than a man, but bear with me. The refrain from that is what stuck with me. Boys, boys, boys. We love them, we love them, we love them. You may not love me at the end of this, but I'm doing my best. So, to my script. Perfection or perfectionism. Now, most of the titles I've heard here have been much longer than that, so I just thought of it the way I was driving here. Oh, yeah, one more song. I turned on my radio as I was getting closer, and the song was Lean on Me by Bill Withers. And I thought, oh my God, how perfect. I'll lean on God. It will come through me. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, the title, Perfection or Perfectionism. Just as I was driving here, I thought, add to that, you choose. Perfection or perfectionism, you choose. So first on the subject of perfection, a number of reflections from different spiritual pathways. God don't create no junk. We are born as perfect reflections of our Creator's will for us to succeed to fulfill our specific mission on earth as co-creators according to his or her design. I am a perfect child of God. May I see all others in this light. We are created in the image of God. We come into this world as perfect creations. We are created as perfect beings from our infancy onwards. Again, these come from a basic Christian philosophy, but different sources, and sometimes different religious ones. I first learned about being created from the image of God from my Catholic upbringing years and years ago. So how do we forget that we were born perfect and become plagued by perfectionism? The short version, the world intervenes. Parents, siblings, teachers, religious organizations, peers, friends, classmates, neighbors, casual acquaintances, employers, for some of us, police, lawyers, judges, all have expectations and different views of what perfect is supposed to look like. Each feels that they're doing us a favor by directing us toward their vision of how we should be. Who here, live or on Zoom, feels they're a perfectionist? Okay, well, I'm going to speak to those of us who identify as such. You notice I raised my hand. For those of you who don't feel you're a perfectionist, please stay tuned. We'll come back to you. But for the next part of this, I want to talk to those of us who identify as perfectionists. So, what is the inside story of how perfectionism is born and how it takes control of us? Sorry. I will share a little from my own experience into the world of perfectionism, and I'm sure that some of you could relate, maybe many of you could relate. Ultimately, the question is, how does a perfect being turn to perfectionism? I started pretty early. My father was, by many accounts from friends and other family members, a perfectionist. And he wanted a perfect child. And he was determined to obtain it. And he used some corporal punishment when he felt it would be instructive. Now, he was never just totally oblivious to the fact of what he was trying to accomplish, so he did his best to help me to understand what I'd done wrong so that I would understand why I deserved the corporal punishment. I learned from this two things that were important in this journey toward perfectionism. One, the only way I was going to avoid further corporal punishment was to be perfect. That way there'd be no reason for it. The other one is, I must be wrong because it kept happening over and over. I guess I'm not perfect. Those two things sort of set the stage for the launch, if you will, of my perfectionism. Then there was the fact that I was kind of a rambunctious child. I'm sure you don't see that in me today, but I was a somewhat unbridled child, unable to, or stifled at home. I acted out in the classroom, in fact, more than once. And it got a little bit out of control, so much so that in the third grade I was given a nickname by a teacher, Walkie-Talkie Hopkins. There's a story behind that I won't share, but you can imagine the pseudo-embarrassment of having that before my classmates, but it didn't stop my behavior. And as I grew older, I dampened it a little bit, but not enough, because by, I think, the fifth grade, the teachers who were tiring of this, of course, it was a different teacher every year. And this was, I think I might have mentioned, I'm not sure, I was raised Catholic, this was a Catholic school. By about the fifth grade, they started saying, we're going to send you to the principal's office if you don't straighten up. Now, you'd think for most people that would be enough of a deterrent, but I couldn't help myself. I got sent to the principal's office. This being a Catholic school, the principal was a nun. And she had a ping pong paddle that she kept in her desk for just these occasions. Now, it's probably the case the first time I went there, I just got threatened with it. If you come back here. And you would have thought that'd be enough, but I came back again. So there was a couple, maybe 3 occasions where the principal let me have it. Like it was only 1 hit, nothing like what my father did, but enough to, I don't want to visit here again. Except I came back again. Anyway, that was one part of it, but the other one is, if you think about it, a sensitive child like myself didn't like being humiliated in front of all my classmates, like, we're going to single you out and we're going to send you to the principal's office. So it was kind of a dual thing. The arrival at the principal's office was one thing. Being singled out from my classmates and being told, leave this room right now, go to the principal's, was another kind of form of embarrassment. And yet, well, out of this grew greater and greater commitment to be perfect. As many of you here at the center know, I have had my share of failed relationships. The question always seems to arise, what did I do wrong? What did she do wrong? In fact, I'm guessing others beside myself have played the blame game. Who really was at fault? Now, you don't have to have a broken relationship to engage in the blame game. You know, who took the cap off the toothpaste and left it off? You know. So, one or both of us must be imperfect. With this in mind, it reopens this discussion to those of you who are not perfectionists. For me, I've had to get honest with the fact that the practice of self-judgment by my own strict personal standards for perfectionism were acquired over my lifetime. This practice of self-judgment became something like a contagion. This is how it worked. If I had become so good at judging myself, surely you could benefit from my excellent judgment as well. Because I could judge myself so harshly and frequently, why can't I judge you? After all, I can't be the only one who's imperfect. You could probably benefit from my judgment. You could probably benefit from my judgment. You could probably. Now you begin to see how those of us who are in the thrall of perfectionism can make life equally miserable for those around us. So, whether you're a perfectionist or you just live in close proximity to one, you've been bit by the bug. Therefore, I think you can see how the prison that I live in can invade and affect you. It took me far too long to realize that I was not entitled to impose my judgment on others. After all, hadn't my parents, my teachers, my peers and siblings and employers imposed their judgments on me? I didn't ask for their judgment any more than you've asked for mine. So I felt entitled to give it. Now, from this perspective, it's a short trip to, I'm certain you can see how this point leads to affirming the power of sin. The pervasive concept of sin in most religious circles helps to spread the sense of inadequacy, guilt, remorse, and desire to do better. So much for perfectionism. I'd like to believe I'm a recovering perfectionist, but, you know, as I was parking here, the last little experience related to the sermon was I pulled in, I parked, and I was too far from the yellow line on the left. It took me 4 times to get exactly where I wanted to be, right between the yellow lines, far enough forward. So I don't know how well the perfectionism is, or the recovery part of perfectionism is coming, but well, how do we make the transition from the prison of guilt of perfectionism back into the awareness of perfection, which is, I believe, truly our real birthright? It was my interest in forging this path, and a modicum of insight into how the process developed that I just described, inspired me to create the following prayer for myself. When I created it about 18 months ago, I think I knew that I'd found the seeds of this sermon that I'm delivering here today. I kept thinking about it. The day will come, but it won't get perfect until... Anyway, here I am. This is the prayer. I'm grateful for what I have. I'm grateful for what I have done. I am grateful for what's in front of me, and I'm grateful for what's in front of me to do. I believe in the importance of affirming gratitude, rather than praying for forgiveness or reinforcing my unworthiness due to my sinful nature. Gratitude can be the key to the release from my perfectionism. Gratitude good, guilt bad. The following came from different Unity booklets I've been reading lately. I continue to pursue these booklets despite the fact that I left Unity Church like many of you did more than 20 years ago, but I keep getting their booklets and I keep finding wisdom there. This is the first affirmation I'd like to share. I'm devoting this day to remembering, expressing, and experiencing the spiritual truth of which I am a perfect expression. The following two came from the same booklet, and they helped me to come to recognize there is a more gentle and positive word for judgment. That word is discernment. Therefore, it seems wise to affirm both of these statements. Our spiritual discernment allows us to recognize the most efficient and effective use of our spiritual energy. The choices that move us toward the kingdom of heaven that lives within us, eager to express. Later in the same booklet, I gratefully and lovingly trust in the gift of spiritual discernment. For every choice I am asked to make as this day unfolds and my expression of the kingdom of heaven continues to expand. That's why I want to check my watch, because just the last 24 hours, I got a couple more ideas for readings, and this time I'll probably just bury my head down to read it, because I want to get this perfect so you can understand it. The path of non-resistance leads you on an inner journey to health, happiness, peace of mind, harmony, and wonderful expressions of love. This path may seem longer, or it may seem to take you out of your way. But if you follow your heart, it will always lead to your good. Begin now to walk the path of non-resistance. Stop mentally fighting the challenge you face. Remember, the more that you think about a problem, the more power you give to it, and the more overwhelming it can become. Relax and release your concerns. Seek God's help in prayer, and follow the guidance you receive. Walk the path of non-resistance. If you want your body to be an expression of health and wholeness, release any thought of illness and focus your attention on the divine life that dwells within you. Holding on to images of imperfection is like walking up a rough, steep hill. You don't get very far before you're worn out from your labor. Release the thoughts that spend your energies and make you struggle. Hold on to thoughts of life and perfection. Your path will become smooth, and you will see positive results. I had one more reading I discovered just this morning. Okay, well, I'll go over in time. It's her fault. I can engage in the blame game just like that. Anyway, this comes from a book entitled 24 Hours a Day. It's written from a perspective of Alcoholics Anonymous. Today, look upward toward God, not downward toward yourself. Look away from unpleasant surroundings, from lack of beauty, from the imperfections in yourself and in those around you. In your unrest, behold God's calmness. In your impatience, God's patience is in your limitations, God's perfection. Looking upward toward God, your spirit will begin to grow. Then others will see something in you that they also want. As you grow in the spiritual life, you will be enabled to do many things that seemed too hard for you before. Now, the way I intended to finish became very clear about Tuesday, a week ago. I came to our Tuesday night class, and I wanted to learn about a Sufi perspective on perfection. So I asked our Imam Kamal Ayubi for his reflections on perfection. He gave me much more than I was prepared for as I scrambled to write down his words, but I did distill the following. He talked about the similarity in the relationship of humans to Allah and compared it to the relationship between the moon and the sun. We, like the moon, reflect the radiance of Allah, the sun. The moon is full when there is no blockage of the earth coming between the moon and the sun. Similarly, we reflect the radiance of Allah when there is no blockage between us and our Creator. We are not the sun, nor will we ever be. However, I would contend that the pursuit of perfectionism is a blockage to full radiance. So quit it and be the full moon that you were created to be.